Today, to help you prepare for the ACT test and for life, we're going to be talking about punctuation. Now, there's a lot to say about this, so we're just going to jump right into it. We're going to be talking about commas, colons, periods, dashes, and semicolons. What I want to do to start this video off is to show you a list of sentences and have you determine what punctuation mark should go into the space in each sentence. Now, notice the sentences are really similar here. I did something bad, killed someone. I did something bad, I killed someone. Notice the only difference here is the word I. I did something bad, not that I killed someone. I did something bad, but I didn't kill anyone. If I do something bad, I'll cry. These sentences are so similar, and yet each one requires different punctuation marks based on how the sentence is constructed. Pause the video here and number a paper 1 to 5. Write down what punctuation marks you think go into each space. We're going to review the punctuation marks, and at the end of the video, we'll look at this again. So pause the video here and write down your answer. Don't cheat. Don't just watch this. Pause it. Now, I tell my students to think of punctuation symbols like math symbols. Oftentimes that helps my logical students put that together because they're not just random marks on a paper. Obviously, each one of them has a specific purpose. For example, think of the comma as a plus sign. When we use commas, it's usually because we're adding things into the sentence. Maybe we're adding details, maybe we're adding descriptions, maybe we're adding times and locations and places, maybe we're adding other sentences with conjunction words. For example, I love you, comma, your sister, comma, your mom, comma, and your dog, period. I'm adding new people to the sentence, and so therefore I want commas to add it together. In my last video, we talked about how commas are used with fanboys words or conjunction words like I love you and I love your mom. When we have two complete sentences and we glue them together with a fanboy, we need a comma, right? Now that's not the only reason you might need a comma, so let's go over the most important comma rules for the ACT test. Rule number 2 is introductions. When you introduce a sentence with maybe a condition or a time in which that sentence happens. If the sentence is, I fell down, that's my sentence, I fell down. Now I might have some introductions or some conditions in which that happened. Maybe it's yesterday, comma, I fell down. After school, comma, I fell down. Your introduction can be really long and contain multiple introductions, like yesterday, comma, after seeing that girl that I like on my way to school, comma, I fell down. And those introductions cannot stand alone as their own sentences. The next example is when you have a series or a list of words. You want to separate each item on the list with a comma. For example, I love soccer, comma, basketball, comma, dance, comma, and golf. And I'm going to separate each item on the list with a comma. The next one, now I don't see this on the ACT test too much, and that's when we're separating more than one adjectives that describe a noun. So if I'm using lots of adjectives to describe this salt shaker, I'm going to separate each one of those adjectives with a comma. But let's use 3 adjectives. Pink, tall, thin. I love this pink, comma, thin, comma, tall salt shaker. Now notice I don't put a comma in between the last adjective, tall, and salt shaker. In my example here, I have 2 adjectives that describe the word spider, and I have 2 adjectives that describe the sister. So it says that huge, hairy spider and my cute little sister. So we're going to be putting 1 comma in between the 2 adjectives. That huge, comma, hairy spider scares me and my cute, comma, little sister. The next rule on the list, which is interruptions and titles. Whenever you add information that interrupts a sentence, you need to put commas around that information. So for example, I have 2 sentences here. One is interrupting the sentence with information, and one is interrupting the sentence with a title. My sentence, my sister who is 6 lives with me. The real sentence is, my sister lives with me. But if I add this information that she's 6 years old, then I would interrupt the sentence saying, my sister, comma, who is 6, comma, lives with me. The same rule applies when I add a title or an A positive to the sentence. I need to have the commas around that interruption. The comma rules are the most complex because there are so many rules for commas. When you look at a sentence and the only difference are where the commas are placed, you have to go through and think, okay, do I have an interruption here? Do I have an extra adjective here? So a comma, again, is like an addition symbol in math. And in a very similar way, a dash looks like a subtraction mark in math because essentially it is a subtraction mark in English. With a dash, rather than adding things to a sentence, usually you're setting a detail aside from a sentence. You're subtracting something from a sentence. Sometimes when I read a dash, when I'm reading a book, I'll make a sound like nyeh, eh, And that's because I usually think of it as something set aside, something negative. So for example, I might use the dash when I say, I can afford all colleges, except Harvard. So one rule is that a dash can set a detail aside or subtract something from a sentence. You can even subtract something within a sentence. The dash would go on either side of the detail being taken out. So for example, I could say, I can afford, no thanks to my dad, any college I want to go to, period. Now the sentence is, I can afford any college I want, but I'm interrupting with this detail omitted, no thanks to my dad, with the dash on either side. It works a lot like an interruption comma. The next item on the list is the colon. The colon is 2 dots, and it looks like an equal sign because in the math symbols, it is an equal sign. A lot of people mistake the colon and think that a colon is supposed to introduce a list. Like for example, I went to the store with colon, my sister, comma, my mom, comma, and my dad, period. That is an incorrect sentence because of the word with. I'll show you what I mean by some examples. So think of a colon as something that stops the sentence and then tells you what the sentence equals. It can introduce a list in that way, but it doesn't have to. My bad example here says, I hope I can go with Juan, George, and Ali. Now notice where the colon is, I can't stop a sentence here. I hope I can go with doesn't stop a sentence. I can't walk up to you and say, hey, I hope I can go with. It doesn't make sense. Because the word with is there, this cannot have a colon. Remember, a colon is not just about introducing a list, it's telling you what a sentence equals. So first, we have to complete the sentence and then tell you what it equals. Here's some examples that work. I hope to go to 2 places, colon, Mexico and Japan. Notice the sentence can stop there. I hope to go to 2 places. That makes sense, right? And if I want to tell you what those 2 places equal, I'd put in a colon, Mexico and Japan, period. I can have a list that way, but I don't have to have a list. I can also just have a single word. I hope to travel to 1 place, colon, Mexico. That works too. The next example, I finished some of my homework, and if I want to tell you what that homework equals, colon, math, and English. When you're looking at the ACT test and you see the option of a colon, you want to check to see if the sentence can stop there. They'll usually try to trick you with words like with or through and then introduce a list. And if you have those words, you cannot use a colon unless it is capable of stopping a sentence and then telling you what that sentence equals. The next punctuation mark is a period, and most of you use periods well. They stop a sentence. I want to go to the store. Stop. The reason I put the period here is because I want to talk to you about the semicolon, which works like a period. Semicolons and periods are essentially the same thing. The difference is, I like to say, a semicolon is like an artistic stop. It's stopping and letting you take a breath, but it's also combining 2 sentences that you feel are so similar, you want them attached together. You never have to use semicolons in writing. One of the ways my students have understood how to use a semicolon and what a semicolon means is the fact that semicolons are becoming very popular tattoos. In fact, at our school, we have, I think, 4 teachers that I know of that have semicolon tattoos on their wrists, behind their ears, on their ankles. The reason that semicolon tattoos are popular is because it's actually a symbol for suicide or a suicide attempt. For example, if somebody tried to commit suicide and stopped their life, but it wasn't successful, or they survived it, then a semicolon tattoo represents the continuation of a life despite the attempt of suicide. Or perhaps you had a friend or family member, someone that you loved who committed suicide. Even though their life stopped, your life continues. So a semicolon attaches 2 sentences together that are really similar. And the writer doesn't want to use a transition. They want you to take a hard breath and then connect it to the next sentence. One thing that's interesting is because a period and a semicolon work the same way, you will never see an ACT question where we'll pit them against each other with the exact same words, expecting that one of them is right and one of them is wrong. That's impossible because they would either both be right or both be wrong. And if you're looking at an ACT question and you see that one of the options has a period and the wording is the same, and the other option has a semicolon with the wording the same, you know that both of those are wrong, simply because you can't have 2 correct answers. So look at the other options and save yourself some time. So let me show you some good examples and bad examples of semicolon usage. So if you look at this sentence, you're funny, semicolon, I like you, it works because you're funny is a sentence that can stand alone. You're funny. I like you is a sentence that can stand alone. I like you. We connect those 2 sentences probably because artistically the reason that I like you is because you're funny. And I don't want a transition word, I like you because you're funny, The reason I'd use a semicolon maybe instead of the word because is because I want a pause there. I like you. You're funny. Another example, come see me. However, don't be late. In this one, I have a transition word in the middle. Come see me is a complete sentence. However, don't be late is a complete sentence. And I'm adding them together with the semicolon. Come see me. However, don't be late. Some bad examples of the semicolon rule is if you say you're funny, semicolon, all the time. That doesn't work. That doesn't work because all the time is not a complete sentence. I can't walk up to you and say, hey, all the time. Another bad example is if you come, I'll like you, because this first portion is not a complete sentence. I can't walk up to you and say, if you come, doesn't make sense. Remember, a semicolon essentially acts like a period. It's just an artistic period, a period with tattoos. These are the most important punctuation marks I wanted to review with you. I'm going to show you how we might use punctuation in similar sentences. I love someone. This is a complete sentence. I, subject, love, verb, someone, object. I love someone. I can walk up to you and say, hey, I love someone. And that makes sense and walk away. Now, we're going to be adding things to the sentence and changing words in the sentence to change the punctuation. So for example, if I want to add an introduction, I might say, today, I love someone. And this example needs a comma. The sentence is still the same. I love someone, but the condition in which I love someone started today. Now let's add an interruption. This is going to make the sentence even longer. I love, even though I said I never would, someone. I love, comma, even though I said I never would, comma, someone. The sentence is still the same. I love someone. Interrupting the sentence is even though I said I never would. Now let's add a fanboys word and have two complete sentences and use the comma. I love someone, comma, and I'm going to tell them. Complete sentence, I love someone. I'm going to tell them, complete sentence, with the word and a comma, fanboy. We're going to squish that together. So what if I have that exact same sentence, but this time I make it so the second part of it is not a complete independent thought after the fanboy. I would do that by maybe taking away the I. So instead of saying, I love someone and I am going to tell them, I would just say, I love someone and am going to tell them. Am going to tell them is not a complete sentence. I love someone is, am going to tell them. I can't walk up to you and say, hey, am going to tell them. That doesn't make sense. We need a subject in that sentence. When we remove the subject, that means we also are going to remove the comma. Let's put the subject back in the sentence and this time take out the fanboy. So that would be, I love someone, I am going to tell them. Now we've got two complete sentences, but no fanboy in the middle. This time we have two options. One option is going to be to put in a period. I love someone, I'm going to tell them. Another way to do that is to add an artistic tattoo semicolon. I love someone, I'm going to tell them. Remember, they work the same. Now let's figure out a way to make this a sentence using a colon. I love someone. Now if I stop the sentence there, I want to tell you who that person equals. I love someone, colon, you. You see how that works? We don't have to introduce a list. My list can be one single person. I love someone, stop the sentence. Who's that person I love? You. Now let's do it with a dash. This time we could subtract someone from the list. I love someone, dash, not you. We can also use these dashes around a detail that interrupts a sentence. For example, I love, not just like someone. I love someone is still the sentence, but now I'm saying I don't just like someone, I love someone. That would require a dash before and after. Treat it like an interruption. This might seem really confusing and you might want to rewatch this video because there are so many punctuation rules and I'm cramming a lot of it into one video. Now we're going to review those 5 sentences from the beginning of the video. So take a moment and look at it again. I want you to pause the video again, go through each sentence and check to see, do I think I got this right now that I've reviewed the punctuation rules? Or do I want to change it? Don't continue because I'm going to give you the answers in just a moment. Figure it out for yourself first. Let's go through the answers. Number 1, I did something bad. That's a complete sentence. Killed someone is not a complete sentence. That equals the thing that I did bad. I did something bad, colon, killed someone. Sentence 2, it's almost exactly the same except for now we have the word I killed someone, and that makes it a complete sentence. I did something bad, complete sentence. I killed someone, complete sentence, but there's no fanboy here. So if I have two complete sentences, there are two ways I could answer this one correctly. Either with a period or with a semicolon. Both of those answers are correct. I did something bad, not that I killed someone. Now I'm subtracting a detail from the sentence. I would make that sound, I did something bad, not that I killed someone. Dash. Number 4, I did something bad, but I didn't kill anyone. This time I have a fanboy. I did something bad, complete sentence, but fanboy, I didn't kill anyone. Two complete sentences with a fanboy, I need a comma. And the last one, if I do something bad, I'll cry. This is the first time that the beginning is not a complete sentence on its own. I can't walk up to you and say, hey, if I do something bad, that doesn't make sense. If I do something bad is a condition in which the real sentence is going to happen. And the real sentence is, I'll cry. I, subject, will cry, verb. That's a complete sentence. And that's my sentence. And the condition that I would cry is if I do something bad. And so this is going to require an introduction, comma. All right, I hope you did well. Now, not all the questions on the English portion of the test are punctuation, but many of them are. And once you really master the punctuation rules, the grammar will make more sense. Review punctuation. Remember, not just for the ACT test, but because you don't want to sound like an idiot. That was a long one. To the next video. You got this.